Whenever I'm reading a book, I do this thing where I write down any interesting words that I've found, any intriguing words in a notebook. Then later on I'll sit at my computer and I'll look up the words in order to find out the interesting etymology and the definitions behind them. Well, then I decided that the second part of that process, the looking up words part, should be a show. So, welcome to Define, the boringest show on YouTube, right here at the Launchpad Writers Club. Cheers. Welcome to the Launchpad Writers Club. I am Andrew Lewis. This is the first ever episode of Define, the boringest show on all of YouTube. Watch it while you do something better. Hey, the first word we're going to look up today is one that I was taught by a friend of mine, Palilalia. She's a horror writer. So the word evisceration. So Paulie asked me to guess what I thought this word meant. And my head went to like evaporation, or like effervescence. So I guess I pictured like something evaporating in like a fizzy way. That's what I guessed that word meant. That's really, really wrong. There's nowhere near the mark. What it actually means is, well, viscera means like organs. Evisceration means to cut something open, spilling out its organs. Let's have a little goog. Evisceration is the removal of viscera, may refer to disembowelment or the removal of internal organs of an animal. So viscera, that's a nice word, the internal organs in the main cavities of the body, especially those in the abdomen, the intestines. So I was thinking like something fizzing away into space, but it actually means your guts spilling out of your opened up stomach. That's nice. So what are we going to write here for this one? I'll just leave it at that, disembowelment. I just realised that of all the words to start this whole series off with, that's as good as any. Next word. So echolalia, I like this word. It is the kind of mindless repetition of words, like someone says something and you kind of babble back the same syllables. It's what toddlers do when they're learning to talk. The reason I wanted to define this word is because that's what my niece is currently doing. And I wanted to be able to tell my brother that, when his daughter is babbling, baby babble, that it's called Echolalia, which is interesting because both my brother and I really love this band called Something for Kate. And they've got a song called Echolalia, and I'm pretty sure, until I looked it up, I just thought it was a made-up word. And I'm pretty sure my brother to this day, there's a chance that he thinks it's just a made-up word. So, I'm going to play him that song and say, that word is what your daughter is currently doing every day. That's kind of cool. Let's look it up. Words are cool. Okay. Echolalia. Echolalia. You want to hear it?
Echolalia.
Oh, echolalia. Very posh. That's apparently how it's pronounced.
Echolalia.
But in the song where I learned it from, it's pronounced echolalia, so I'm going to continue to say it like that. Meaningless repetition of another person's spoken words as a symptom of a psychiatric disorder, or the repetition of speech by a child learning to talk. The psychiatric disorder bit, I guess, cool. That's something I didn't know. Here's something cool. When a baby is babbling, or if you break down a language into phonemes, phonemes are like the individual syllable sounds that you can make in a language. I think English, has about like 50 or so phonemes. I'm going to actually Google that right now. How many bear with me because I'm about to say something interesting. Okay, sorry, there's 44 phonemes in English. That means there's 44 different sounds that we make that make up the whole spoken English language. Now, different languages and dialects have different phonemes. Some have more, some have just different ones. And if you looked at all the different phonemes across all the different languages, there's actually hundreds of them. Now, the cool thing is when a baby babbles, does that baby gibberish that they do, they will actually make every single different phoneme across every single different language. And then as they learn to talk, they stick to the ones obviously that are used in their culture, in their language. I just found it interesting that at some point you would have made all those random different noises, like rolled R's. We don't really do that in English, or those like plosive things that they do. I can't remember the technical word. It's like a Russian thing. Anyway, that's interesting. Is it? I don't know. I did say it was going to be the boringest show on YouTube, so if you want interesting. Okay, so the mindless repetition of syllables by a child learning speech or person with psychiatric disorder. Cool. That leads us to Coprolalia. Coprolalia you may have heard of before by the name Tourette syndrome. Coprolalia. Okay. The involuntary and repetitive use of obscene language as a symptom of mental illness or organic brain disease comes from the Greek word kopros, meaning dung, and lalia, meaning speech or chatter. So, it literally translates to talking dung. So next time someone's saying something that you think might be a bit untrue, you could say that it's coprolalia. Although technically it isn't. What coprolalia is involuntarily swearing. So Tourette syndrome. When our ancient ancestors, monkeys that dwelled in trees, saw a predator, a snake, for example, a certain bit of their brain would light up when they screamed. So they would scream saying, snake, there's a snake, in monkey language, and warn the other monkeys. The same bit of our brain lights up when we swear. So technically, when those apes were saying, or even today when a gorilla sees a snake, it'll scream and warn all the other gorillas or monkeys or whatever. And so when they do that, they're not just saying, there's a snake, they're saying, holy swear word, there's a snake there, which I think is kind of funny and interesting. I don't know if that is at all related to coprolalia, but I'd be willing to bet that the region of your brain that is ill when you have Tourette syndrome would be the same region that is lighting up when you swear, right? Maybe that same region that the monkeys are saying, snake, look, there's a snake. Their snake warning brain system. I don't know what I'm talking about. Cool. Let's move on, shall we? Palilalia. This is one that I don't really know if I've got a firm grasp on this one. Palilalia. Palilalia. Palilalia?
Palilalia.
Palilalia. I'm bad at pronouncing things. A speech disorder characterized by involuntary repetition of words, phrases, or sentences. Now, the thing that sets this one apart from Echolalia is that you're repeating whole phrases that are contextually correct. And I think you repeat your own, like you repeat yourself. So palin meaning again, and lalia meaning speech, so to repeat what someone has said. Repetition of syllables, words, or phrases. It has features resembling other complex tics such as echolalia and coprolalia, but unlike other aphasias, palilalia is based upon contextually correct speech. So at first they called it autoecholalia, meaning Echolalia of the self, and then they renamed it to Palilalia. What is an aphasia? Let me really quickly look at that. Inability to comprehend and formulate language because of damage to specific brain regions. You know, I think what it might be is if you've ever seen the movie The Aviator, with that Leo film, and he keeps repeating phrases over and over, the way of the future, the way of the future, the way of the future. Maybe that's Palilalia. That's the only example that crops into my head. Like Echolalia, but contextual repeating one's self. Okay. You know, I just want to go back really quickly and make sure that what I said before is correct. Is Coprolalia Tourette's syndrome? Apparently only about 10% of Tourette's patients exhibit coprolalia. I think that might mean that not all people with Tourette's syndrome will yell or involuntarily say obscenities. I think that's more of like a Hollywood thing. Yeah. Lastly, but not at all leastly, this is a good word. You know, I threw this word out into my writers group that I run here, and got a good laugh out of the definition. I told everyone what it means, and then over the next few weeks, this word kept coming up in people's writing, which I found really amusing. The word is Callipygian, and I'll just pull it up here. Having a well-shaped buttocks. Oh, what a lovely word. So it comes from beauty, kalos, and puge, meaning buttocks. It was used to describe a famous statue of Venus originally. Let's have a look. Oh, and there it is. There's the famous statue of Venus. They had to invent a word to describe how nice her butt was. And let me just say, that is pretty Callipygian. Yeah, how do I get out of that? Synonyms include bootylicious, bumtastic, callipygious, and rumpalicious. Chuck a few of those in your next book, why don't you? Callipygian, having a nice butt. There's a word for everything. There really is. Next time someone says to you, words just can't describe, man, just say to them, they probably can. They probably can. In fact, there's even a word to describe things that can't be described with words. So the fact that they used a sentence to say that rather than ineffable, which is that word, proves that they probably just don't know the words that they're looking for. Tune in next time when we do this again. All right. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something. See you next time.